The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Talkin' Buds Leaf Show, episode 258. How's it going, buddy? How was your weekend?
It was good. It went by, I feel like we were just on here 10 seconds ago. So
We kind of were on here 10 seconds ago.
Went by pretty fast. Went by pretty quickly.
Another back-to-back. So many back-to-backs. Like, I obviously we don't pay attention to this and don't know the stats with the other teams in the league, but like, they gotta be leading the NHL in back-to-backs now. Like, it feels like they've got a back-to-back once a week.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just with I guess with the Four Nations face-off, everyone's schedule is kind of fucked up. So I don't know.
I bitched about the Sunday game on Friday because, and I still stand by that. During the NFL season, I would really prefer it if the Leafs did not play on Sunday, because that's football. And the NFL season ends. Basically, the season itself ends in January. Like, yes, the Super Bowl's in February, but the season, for all intents and purposes, ends in January. So you can play as many games, as many Leaf games on Sunday as you want post-January, but from October to Jan, would prefer not to have them play on Sunday. Having said that, I could really get behind 5 p.m. starts on the weekends. Huge fan of the 5 p.m. start.
Yeah, it gives you a taste of what it's like to be on the West Coast when you're taking in Eastern time games. Like I can get behind 5. I can get behind early. It was done. I could watch the Sunday nighter. Wasn't too late. Wasn't falling asleep. I'm with you. You'd be seeing
way more post-game shows out of us if they started at 5 p.m. Way more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they lose on Saturday in Detroit, and then they come back and start slow against the Buffalo Sabres, but then ultimately end up winning that game. A lot of that, I think, is because the Buffalo Sabres are one of the worst hockey teams I've ever seen in all my years watching. Mental mistakes I'm seeing starting to creep in a little bit. And I was watching them on Saturday, and then the way they started on Sunday, and a lot of the start on Sunday was Dennis Hill to be just not making saves. But I'm watching this group, and I'm starting to see sort of old habits creep in, and that same thing we see from them every year, where like it's almost like a complacency sets in, where they just stop paying attention to the details and get back to what it is they really want to do, which is run and gun hockey and trade chances. And I think Craig Berube early in the season has done a really good job of keeping their eye on the prize with respect to like paying attention to the details. But you're seeing that kind of slip. And a lot of the goals against the Red Wings on Saturday were defensive zone breakdowns. Auston Matthews out of position on one of them. John Tavares out of position on the other. And so all this is to say that I think this is where I think Berube is going to need to differentiate from Sheldon Keefe, where I think he's really going to have to get on these guys. And even if you are winning games, which is great, you still need to be paying attention to the details and enforcing that. And I don't know if that's it taking away shifts or whatever, but I just think he's got to be a hard ass.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like I have seen some things that maybe they weren't doing a couple weeks ago when they were really clamping teams down, but especially against the Red Wings, I thought they were kind of running around all those goals against. It was just opportunities that they could have stopped, and we didn't need to see some of those goals. But at the same time, it's an 82 game regular season here. Okay, like this, I'm not expecting perfection defensively every single night. And the more I read articles and watch TV and I hear 60-minute effort, I hear that all the time. 60-minute effort. At this point, when you're playing an 82 game season, it is really fucking hard to put together a 60-minute effort. It really is. Right. It really is. And I thought, let's get into the Sabres game. Was that a 60-minute effort? Absolutely not. But you know what? One thing I've took for granted so far this season is, boy, you can look a lot better defensively if your goaltender does not let in some clean looks. That's for damn sure, because I those 3 goals that the Sabres scored, those were all 3 clean looks that got by him, and I'm watching it being like, you can attempt to play great defensive hockey, but if you're not getting those stops from your goaltender, it kind of goes out the fucking window. It really does. Right. And I thought against Detroit, it wasn't on the goaltender, but I think it was just a good reminder in that Buffalo game that you can pay attention to all the details you want, but if you really want to be successful in this league defensively, you got to get a goalie who can make those stops.
Yeah, Dennis Hildeby was looking a bit shell-shocked, shall we say, to start that game. I thought he settled in all right after a while, but it was not great. That's for sure. It was not great. Yeah. Depth scoring, your favorite topic of discussion. So they put this third line together of Domi, McMann, and Robertson, and they look pretty good. And I don't want to be negative, but it is against the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, they play the Dallas Stars on Wednesday. If they go out and look good against a team like that, to me, that just makes it even more of a positive. But you look at that, and that's exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about depth scoring, is guys outside the quote-unquote top 6 that are driving offense for you. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm just like, these guys, I thought that was Nick Robertson's best game of the season by far on Sunday. And he was just in on everything. He was finishing checks. And it reminded me of the conversation we had about Max Domi on our last episode when comparing him to Max Pacioretty. And we're talking about, Max Pacioretty has done a really good job of identifying what this team needed and adjusting his game to suit that. Like we need a more physical winger up front. And I look at Domi and Robertson, Bobby McMann less so, but Domi and Robertson, and I think if you guys can find a way to be a pesky third line to play against and can drive offense, it completely changes the complexion of this team. And that starts with being physical. That starts with winning battles. That starts with burying your chances. That starts with fucking shooting the puck. All that kind of stuff. And so you just hope that they can build off the momentum of Sunday night's game and carry that through, because that's exactly when people cry about depth scoring. That's exactly what they're talking about, is a line with those 3 guys. Those are the 3 guys that we identified as needing to score more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. During our exercise, we started naming names of who we're talking about. And I kind of ruled out anybody who plays on the 4th line, because I can't expect anybody from that. So it was Domi, it was McMann, who has been scoring this year, and Nick Robertson. And in a game where Dennis Hildeby lets in 3 clean looks, more than ever, you needed to find ways to create offense in that game to kind of get it back. They needed to kind of go back to more old Leaf style of, we're getting 4 or 5 goals tonight. And I like what Domi said after the game. He said that the 3 of them got together at the end of at the beginning of the night and said, what do we do well? We skate well, and we all have a little bit of skill. So let's go out there and skate and create opportunities with that. And I think it really shows how important Bobby McMann is to this hockey team. Like he's a huge X factor for them. I'm really happy for Nick Robertson that he was able to get 2 points and score a goal. And do I see that line kind of being a fixture going forward? Probably not. But I think Bobby McMann is a massive, massive player for them, for just plugging him in on a 3rd line, 2nd line, whatever you need him to do. He's just, is he going to score 40 goals in the National Hockey League? No, he's not. Is he capable of doing it? Maybe. But he's shown the ability to just there's just like an aura around him when he's going that he can really drive offense for the bottom of their lineup. And I'm watching him, and it's like, this guy is so key for them. I love his size. I love his ability to put the puck in the net when he has a chance. I think it just speaks to his ability to kind of uplift other players when he's going.
O-Dog talks about this on Overdrive from time to time about how when you get to the NHL, you either have the ability to score, it just comes to you, or it doesn't. And a lot of guys struggle. And that's the one thing Bobby McMann has that I think his other two line mates have struggled with is this guy can score a goal. So that's what elevates him. When he's in that third line role, the good thing about him, as you just pointed out, is you can move him up into the top six if needed. But when he's on that third line, odds are if he gets a clean look, he's going to bury it. Now, I don't think Max Domi should do what Max Domi does and spend his entire life trying to pass to Bobby McMann. But I like that they got together and had a little powwow. That's what you need, because I think it's three guys who are realizing, like, listen, this top six is pretty set. Barring an injury, it's going to be really hard for one of us to crack it. So let's create our own identity as a third line. And these guys know, they hear the narrative outside the building of depth scoring. So good for them. I like to hear that.
And I think McMann and Domi, it's a perfect example. The thing you do like about those two guys too, aside from skill set or whatever, is those are two team guys. I feel like those are two guys who don't really have an ego and aren't going to be divas and poo-poo things. I think they're actually good dudes who want to do what it takes to help this team get over the hump. And I think putting Nick Robertson in with that attitude, because I'm sure he hasn't been very positive on himself this entire season. So hopefully some of that, their two attitudes, maybe can rub off on him. I don't know. But yeah, I just think it was nice to see Max Domi finally get a goal. Like, it was so overdue, man. And that's 2 straight years where it's taken him over 20 games to put one in the back of the net. And it's just, he's too skilled to be scoring his first goal halfway or a quarter way through the season. Like, he's just too good for that.
I think we kind of hit on it a bit in our last episode with him, where it's like, he needs to figure out his identity on this Leaf team. He's been too much of a tweener thus far, where it's like, he's not a goal scorer, but he wants to be a playmaker, but he's not as good as Mitch Marner, who is this team's ultimate playmaker. He's not a good enough center at this point to supplant Tavares in the top six. So he's got to find his place. And so, like, being a little pest out there is something I've always wanted from him. And he can do that from time to time. He can be tough. He's not afraid to drop the mitts. We've seen him do it a bunch of times. But it's just finding your place and finding what can you do? How can you change your game? What adjustments can you make to make yourself a more valuable commodity in this lineup every night, and not have the coaching staff looking at it saying, I don't know what to do with him. Like, because I don't think he's getting back in the top six barring an injury. I think Berube's pretty set on what his top six is. I think he'll move those guys around, as you saw in the Buffalo game, where he literally had a line of Matthews, Nylander, and Marner, and move Nye down to the second line.
Yeah,
but I think those guys...
has anyone ever done that?
No, I don't think... Well, I think Keith's probably done it. Keith's probably done it here and there.
Not a situational one where it's like the penalty kill was over and then they get on the ice. Has anyone actually decided that these three guys are going to play together on a regular 5-on-5 shift? I don't remember Babcock doing it. I don't remember Keith doing it. It was quite shocking to see.
Well, I think that was in response to the comments he made after the Detroit game, where he's basically saying, we got to bury our chances. Like, we're not burying our chances. So I think he's just like, let's load up a super line. Now, I hope he doesn't do that come playoff time, because makes the defensive strategy for your opponent really easy. But point being, it's hard for those three guys to crack the top six. So find a new identity, figure out how you can be valuable and what you're going to do. I can't say enough about Nick Robertson. I thought he was really good, and he doesn't have the size that a Max Pacioretty does, or a McMahon or a Nyes, but he was playing hard and he was finishing his checks. Tip my hat to him.
More upside offensively. I know he hasn't played great and he doesn't have a lot of points to show for it or goals, but at the end of the day, if he could ever just kind of figure it out, because he just has way more upside than a Pontus Holmberg. Like, I don't like seeing Pontus Holmberg on a third line. It just doesn't really get me fired up.
No.
And So it's just like, if this guy could ever just learn to be effective and work with what he's got, like it'd just be a massive difference. But I think last night was just a perfect, like, it's just, this is what happens in an 82 game season. Like, here we are being like, this third line could work out. Look at these guys. These guys are skating. It could be kind of a skating third line. And then Berube after the game goes, well, I liked the heaviness of Nyes, Pacioretty, and Tavares. We kind of like heavier dudes, because all of a sudden John Tavares is a heavy player, because I'm on Twitter and the guy's won more one-on-one puck battles than anybody else in the NHL, which is shocking.
Man, if he ever wants to look at me or anyone else who called him washed and say, you shut your fucking mouth, show that stat. That is one of the most impressive stats I've seen this year.
Yeah. So, and I hear Berube say that in like heavy line, and they were like kind of matched up against Tage Thompson, and I'm like, well, that could be good. That's a heavy line. And the next week we'll be having a different conversation about a whole different line combination. Yeah. It's just, this is the ebbs and flows of an 82 game regular season.
The 24-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL.
It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win.
And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Auston Matthews starting to heat up a little bit. He's still a bit snake bit. There's a lot of chances that he's missing, whether the goalie's making the save or it's going wide or the timing's just a little bit off. But I am happier to see. It feels like he's starting to settle into Auston Matthews mode a little more and is starting to impact the game more on a shift-to-shift basis.
Yeah, I think, if you were to look at the numbers, he is getting opportunities. Like, he's getting plenty of opportunities, and it's like when he's not scoring, it almost feels like he's not playing as well. And that's also something I always harp on him. It's just the expectation for him is so high. Like, he needs to bury chances. I'm not going to keep cutting him breaks for being snake bit or whatever. And I'm not criticizing him right now. It's just it's weird how you go from like a 69 goal season where everything's just going in for you, and then now it's like there's 2 or 3 chances a night where he would have buried last season, and he's just not doing it. And I don't know if it's like something to do, maybe even like his wrist shot. I don't know, like maybe I'm reading too much into the injury that no one knows nothing about. But like this season, has he really done that patented like drag it in with the toe and do the quick wrist shot over a guy's shoulder?
And
I haven't seen
the wrist
that.
is something he's had issues with, and it's entirely possible that the wrist is what was bothering him. Like he's had a chronic wrist problem for a few years now.
Yeah. But he definitely is getting chances. And that's the one thing about that Detroit game too. They had some breakdowns in that game, but I also thought they had a lot of opportunities to take that game as well. And they just couldn't bury it at all.
Yeah. I'm happy to see him starting to round into form a little bit more. And if he can stay healthy, I think is he going to have another record setting season? No, I see him ending up somewhere in the 40 to 50 goal range, which is perfectly fine. Listen, at the end of the day, it's got to a point with Auston Matthews where I don't care how many regular season goals he gets. I just, if he gets 69, great. If he gets 39, great. Like I'm not at a point where like that's something I'm particularly fussed about. And listen, you score when we need you to score in the playoffs. Doesn't matter if you win the Rocket Richard or how many goals you get in the regular season. It's that simple.
Well, I'd still like him to get he still needs to score over 40 goals a season for what he's getting paid. Like I do agree with you 100%, but
yeah.
I mean, if they win their division and he has 35 goals, then whatever at the end of the whatever at the end of the day. But at the same time, I do expect him to get over 40 for the expectations he puts on himself and the expectations I put on him as the highest paid player in the NHL.
You intrigued me a little bit with the bringing up the Berube comments about the heavy line. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I
worry about that line speed a little bit. Like, I worry about that line being able to skate, because the thing that we saw against the New Jersey Devils last week, and to a lesser extent, maybe the Red Wings a little bit on Saturday, is this is not the Leafs are not fast. Like, they're not a team that is going to skate you through the boards. So I just worry about that line's ability to move quickly.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I just don't see them loading up a line like that consistently in terms of putting the big three together at the top. I think when things aren't going well, it's definitely something. It's a different look that he can try when things aren't going well, or just like having a feel. I like having a coach who has a feel for the game, and if that's what he feels is needed for that night, and it ends up working out in the end, then what else can he ask a coach to do other than that? Like, you have a feeling, you do it, it works out. That's fucking great.
Yeah. Got a little bit of an update on Anthony Stolarz. Apparently it's a knee issue that is bothering him, something that has kind of plagued him throughout his career. He just I don't think it's a situation where he's done or anything, but you brought it up last episode, and it's something that I've been thinking about too. Like, I just hope he's on IR. I don't think you'll see him for another week or so. That's just my guess. The Leafs have a reputation and a history of maybe keeping guys out a little longer just to make sure everything's good to go. Do worry about him coming back and just being able to kind of hit the ground running. And I hope that this doesn't slow him down and impact, because he's been outstanding. Yeah. And I'm worried about that. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, because we've seen it before where guys go on a roll, and even if they come back from a small injury or big injury, they just come back, and it seems like they can't just find that form they had before they got injured. And you're right. That's the only thing I am somewhat worried about, but at least we're not talking about 3 months here. We're talking about, we'll see him. He could be available on Friday against the Sabres. So,
well, I mean, it could be, I'm just guessing that he will be back in a week's time. That hasn't been reported. When the Leafs say day to day or week to week, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's all a mystery.
It is all a mystery. Do you get fussed about this sort of thing? A lot of people get really pissed off about.
I don't give
the Leafs.
I don't give a shit about this stuff. I really don't. It's a media thing where you don't have a lot of things to talk about. Yeah. So as soon as there's something you can talk about, and suspensions are like that, injury reports are like that. It's something that beat guys and networks just love getting a hang on. I don't understand why fans are all fussed about it. It's okay. What the NFL is a perfect example. You know exactly what happens to a guy the minute it happens to him. I know if it's a hamstring, a knee, hip, an ankle, an ACL right away. And then that's great for everyone who plays fantasy football or bets or whatever. So it's, in a way, I get it that why not just tell us what's going on? And I know of the excuse of, players might target them or whatever, but guys aren't targeting dudes in the NFL. It's the most physical sport in the world. So I get why people are like, what's the point of being all secretive about it? But I'm not losing sleep over it.
If the league doesn't mandate you to do it, then why would you? They don't have to. They don't have to. I don't care. I don't. Yeah. I really because
don't.
The Leafs haven't. I should say I ask because to my knowledge, the Leafs have not confirmed that it is a knee. I think it was Kyprios that was speculating about that. And given his history and given the way he kind of got up and was shaking his leg, it would make sense. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
How long is he out for? Like, that's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? How long is he out? If you're saying, yes, I know that when it comes to other teams and other sports, when the Leafs say day to day, week to week, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly what it is. But at least if they were shutting him down, you'd know about that, and we'd be dealing with that right now.
Yeah, I have a team mentality when it comes to this. It's just once you're not available, you're out of my mind, out of sight, out of mind. Like we got to worry about who's coming in playing next. We got to worry about what we're doing in the games that you're not going to be there, and I'm not going to think about you. Now I got to start thinking about Joseph Wall carrying more of the mail. And if there's not a back-to-back, I'm sure Joseph Wall's going to be playing every single night. And if there is a back-to-back, then you just hope you can put Hildeby in there, and the Leafs can do what they did last night. He didn't exactly have his best performance, but they kind of felt the urgency of the game where we're not going to win scoring 2 tonight. We need to score 4 or 5 because we need to bail our goaltender out who doesn't play at the NHL level regularly, and you just hope for the best in those situations.
Anything about Saturday discourage you with respect to Joe Wall, or no?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just one of those nights, which I was worried about this with the Sabres too. It was one of those nights where I think the Red Wings absolutely needed a dub. Yeah. Absolutely. Like they needed a win so bad because they're kind of in the basement right now. And I thought the same thing was going to happen against the Sabres, but I think the Sabres are way worse team than the Red. Well, not way worse, but they're not in a good place. They're really in a bad place. Like they're really in a bad place.
Hey, Ryan, the Buffalo Sabres have lost 10 in a row and are still 1 point up on the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really tough for Buffalo. And I'm looking at Lindy Ruff, and I'm listening to Lindy Ruff's comments after the game. Like, why is Lindy Ruff the coach of this hockey team? Why?
Because I don't know.
You couldn't find anybody better, or like you couldn't think of a fresh idea.
Well, dude, there's when you think about fan bases in pro sports, and you think about some of these teams that are just hopeless, like the New York Jets and the Chicago White Sox,
the New York Giants. Yeah, we can
New York
go on
Giants
for hours about
the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like you just think about the Chicago Bears. Yeah. Like you just think about the Buffalo Sabres are right in that discussion, man. Like they're going to have to do another rebuild.
Which is so weird because it seemed like they were doing it correctly by kind of building. I mean, they don't have a goaltender, number one. They were playing a guy who hasn't played in the NHL in a month last night. And I actually thought he played pretty well considering how many shots he faced. But they were kind of building from the blue line out. And they drafted some kind of highly touted dudes who looked pretty good, who have a high upside. But it's just, it seems like the culture there is suffering.
I think you take cues from the football team in Buffalo in that, yes, Josh Allen is like drafting like a McDavid, but in the sense that like he can change. He's so good. Yeah, he's elite, best of the best.
Generational talent right now. Yeah.
Yes, generational talent. That's what I was looking for. But bringing him in changes the entire culture of the organization. And Kevin Adams, the Sabres GM, like last week, basically said as much. He was like, we're not a destination for players. Like players don't want to come here. And I think they're going to have to just hit on a player. And you're right. Like they had Eichel, that didn't work out.
Exactly.
Like
I know Eichel was supposed to be that guy.
They got Owen Power. Like they need to get a guy in there who's going to turn that franchise around. And retreading a Lindy Ruff is not, like, no disrespect to Lindy, but like just that's not. I'm with you. I kind of a peculiar decision.
I think a lot of it too is like bad timing. Like when the Leafs did the greatest tank of all time, they were doing a tank to get a generational player.
Yes.
And the year before, the Sabres did maybe the most savage tank of all time to get the generational player, and they lost out. They didn't get him. And they got Eichel, and that didn't work out. But I also don't think Jack Eichel is a generational player. I think he's a really good player. So it's like when you do the tank and you need to get that generational guy, sometimes like look at Montreal. They got Slafkovsky. It's like he's a good player, but he's not going to change your franchise. So I feel bad for the teams that do tank and they just don't get that number one dude who's just going to change the face of
a generational talent.
Yeah. So a lot of it's timing too. One thing I do want to hit on. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, no, just on that, like you're seeing, like look at the impact Macklin Celebrini's having with the San Jose Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
Like just inserting a guy like that is the San Jose Sharks are not the team we all thought they were. Like obviously they're not a playoff team, but they're better than everyone thought they were going to be. It depends on where you end up, and it depends on who surrounds them. Like look at Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
Like Connor Bedard is not having that great of a season because the Blackhawks are fucking brutal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and he looked really good last year, and hopefully he kind of does the Nathan McKinnon thing where you kind of have a rough sophomore year, and then all of a sudden you're the best player in the NHL.
Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
You can hope for that. The one thing I want to hit on before we get out of here with the Leafs is we need to do our weekly, bi-weekly, monthly power play discussion with this hockey team. Okay? Because I'm watching them, and if I see Mitch Marner attempt a along the ice slap pass one more time, I'm going to fucking lose my mind.
Ryan, he didn't do that when Auston Matthews wasn't in the lineup. Auston Matthews gets back in the lineup and he's doing it again. And I've told you, I find this to be the most confounding thing in the whole world. I'm sure they've done what you've suggested where they sit with him in the film room and point out all the differences when Matthews is in the lineup versus when he's not. It's weird. I don't know. But he doesn't do that shit when Matthews is not out there.
I just don't. I understand having Mitch Marner kind of like in control of the puck on the power play, because when it comes to like making a pass that no one else can make, he has that ability, even though sometimes he tends to overpass. But I don't get how you have, and I've talked about this for years, I don't get how you have one guy who scored 69 goals in a season, and then you have another guy who's going to be a perennial 40-plus goal scorer and is their top goal scorer right now, who hasn't gone more than 2 games without a goal. I don't understand, for guys who've like kind of been perceived as like, I don't want to say the word selfish, but like they like their offense. They like getting their points. Yeah. They like getting their cookies. Yes. I don't get why you don't have the two best shooters in the NHL just firing pucks on net 24/7. It's just pass. Mitch Marner slap pass doesn't work. Puck's out of the zone. Pass. It's like, and then Matthews, what does he do? He tees up a 1-T and it hits Tavares and goes in the net. I don't understand. Shoot the puck, man.
It's
like, I know it's such a basic analysis, and I'm sure someone who loves analytics can come up with a better play than that, but it seems pretty rudimentary to me. You have 2 of the best shooters in the National Hockey League on both sides. One's left-handed, one's right-handed. That means one-timer here. You have 2 guys who are pretty elite down low at putting the puck in the net when they have an opportunity. Just start firing away. Fire away.
Listen, I'm starting to kind of mentally check out on this, because it's just who these guys are. Like they want to be pretty. Everything's got to be pretty. And listen, if you want to fuck around and do this in the regular season, I don't care. But like when we get into playoff time and we need a goal and we're busy trying to be pretty, it's just, that's who they are. That's who they are. It is what it is. It's so frustrating. No, it doesn't make sense at all.
They're such elite offensive players. And you would think one of them would want to like carry the mail and just want to get every single goal on the stat sheet that they possibly can. But for some reason, they get on the man advantage and they just stop shooting the puck. They stop. Yeah. Be selfish. Someone be selfish and fire it on net. Even if you hit it into a shin pad, that's going to happen. Okay. Like make sure he doesn't go the other way for a breakaway. But could we just start having a little more of a selfish attitude in terms of putting pucks on net on the power play? Like that's all I'm asking. That's all I want.
I don't disagree, buddy. I don't disagree. But hey, he didn't do that shit when Matthews was out, and he's back doing it. So I don't really know what to say when it comes to that. That's kind of just what he does and how he rolls. All right, time to get out of here. Dallas on Wednesday. Another back-to-back this weekend. You will be in the building on Friday. You will be in the building in Buffalo to watch the Leafs take on the Sabres again.
I Well, I've never done this trip before. So
I've never gone to a Leaf Road game.
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to like rack my memory if I've ever been anywhere to see a Leaf Road game, and I don't think it's happened. So I'm finally doing the trip down to Buffalo. Going to see the Leafs play on a Friday night.
Yeah, and then they're back Saturday against the New York Islanders. Always an entertaining spectacle when the Leafs and the Islanders get together. It's in Toronto, though. It's not as... which isn't as electric as it is when it is in Long Island. So we will be back at our usual time on Sunday morning to discuss the week that was. If you'd like to join us for that, hit that like and subscribe button below. If you're listening to the audio version, like, subscribe, review, all that fun stuff. We really, really appreciate it.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We'll see you guys on Sunday.